Hello, 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 and welcome back to the channel. It's been a while. Made a few promises on some series that never really happened. I started them, but I never really finished them. They never really developed. Stuff just comes up in life. But we are back for the second annual college alumni tournament this year on Madden 24. And this year I had the PS5s. We're on next gen. See if that changes anything. But yeah, we have a lot to get to. Still running a 16-team tournament. We've also added somebody to the booth, so we'll have 3 people commentating these games. And yeah, I'm excited. So let's go ahead and start looking at this bracket and some of these teams. All right, 16. As you notice, it looks basically the same as last year. If you watched last year's video revealing all the teams, the selection show. Alright, so let's go ahead and get to that number 1 seed. Starting off with Alabama. Shouldn't really be a surprise. There was some debate of whether I should put Ohio State at that 1 seed since they were the 2 seed last year and they won the championship. But overall, Alabama still higher than Ohio State. And we'll look, they still have a lot of good offensive skill players. Guys like Amari Cooper, a bunch of other receivers, Waddle, Smith, Tua still at quarterback. Offensive line is pretty average. Same with tight ends. You notice their overall also stayed the same. Some weaknesses, like I mentioned, average offensive line, average linebacker. They replace Hightower with Will Anderson, which is a bit of a different type of player. Will Anderson's more of a pass rusher. We're going to try to tailor that defense more towards using him as well. But yeah, not a lot different with Alabama. Kicker is still going to be something that we play around with this year. Last year we gave everybody like an average kicker. Like I adjusted the attributes, and if they didn't have one, everybody had basically the same person. And we're basically going to do that again this year. So yeah, we'll see how that affects them as well. But yeah, Alabama definitely going to be one of the heavy favorites as usual. And yeah, on defense, you got an elite secondary, Surtain, Diggs, and yeah, just a lot of really good names. Humphrey. You also have Fitzpatrick. Yeah, just elite secondary. Same with the D-line. You got Quinnen Williams, Allen. Yeah, let's go ahead and get to that 2nd seed. And as you may have already been able to guess, it is again Ohio State. Small dip in overall. Went from an 85 or 86 to 85. Not much change with this team. Wide receivers are still going to be elite with McLaurin, Michael Thomas. Pass rush, yep, obviously the Bosa brothers, Chase Young, and Hayward on that D-line. Cornerbacks are also really good. Weaknesses, average offensive line, same as last year. Linebackers are also pretty average, and same with tight ends. Tight ends, I think they have like a high 60. Not as familiar with the rosters this year since I built them last year as well, so let's go ahead and see who that 3 seed is going to be. But shout out to Ohio State for winning it last year, beating Florida State in the championship. Spoiler alert if you guys didn't go watch that, but hey, we got a new tournament this year. You don't need to go back and watch that. But the 3 seed this year is again going to be LSU. So far through 3, same 3 as the top 3. Strengths, this passing game is deadly, as it was supposed to be last year. They hit a little hiccup against Wisconsin in the quarterfinals. But obviously you got Burrow, Chase, Jefferson. And yeah, O-line's pretty solid as well. Left tackle's a bit of a question mark. They have a center moved over there right now. Still a low 70, so not terrible. And he is more of a pass blocker, so he should pan out there. They don't have a punter on the roster. Again, they'll just be handed one. Secondary is also strong, as LSU is one of the best DB producing schools. And yeah, we look at the overalls. A slight bump in offense. That's going to be because Jefferson, Chase, Burrow all hit a little bump in their overall, so that brought them up to a 85 on offense, still at 84 overall. Now, we get to the 4 seed. Does anything change there? It does not. Oklahoma returning to that 4 seed spot. Now, Oklahoma was a team that got upset in the first round last year by FSU. That was a huge upset, but it was a bit of it was a good matchup for FSU. They got a really good defense, so they were able to hold Oklahoma when they needed to, and they were able to put up points against this defense, which you look at their overall on defense, 67 overall defense, not very good. And you look at the strengths and weaknesses, it's pretty straightforward. Basically what I had last year. Offense, no one below 81. That's up from last year. And you also notice their offense is a 95 overall. That's up 4 from last year as well. Defense took a bit of a hit. They're down to a 67. Overall, still at an 82, which is up 2 from last year. And they also don't have a kicker. Also, one thing to note is if I have something on here like they don't have a kicker, I'm going to go back and relook at all of that stuff just to make sure. But I don't think they have a kicker in the game, and that's going to be something that a lot of the teams struggle with. But last year it didn't affect it too bad. But again, this is next gen, so we'll see how it plays out. All right, let's get on to that 5 seed. Here is where things will start to change this year. Clemson coming in at the 5 seed. The same quadrant as Oklahoma. You'll see they went up 4 overalls, plus 6 on offense, plus 2 on defense. And that's going to be because you had guys develop like Trevor Lawrence. T. Higgins also had a great year. Offensive line still going to be a weakness. Same with tight ends. Defensively, they're really strong. Obviously, you got an 83 overall defense. Linebackers are still going to be a bit of a issue. You got Simpson, a rookie. He's going to be stepping up into a linebacker role along with Isaiah Simmons, who moves down from safety. Yeah, just another really solid team. A lot more well-rounded this year. We'll still see the offensive line is still something to keep an eye on, and a kicker is also something that they lack. But yeah, up from a 7 seed last year. They lost to Ohio State in the quarterfinals, and if I remember right, that was not a close game. So let's see if they can bounce back this year. They are on the other side of the bracket, so they won't have to worry about Ohio State unless they get to the championship game. But yeah, let's go ahead and get to that 6 seed. Georgia sliding in at 6. They dropped 1 from 5, but they still went up in overall. So a lot more quality teams this year. They went up basically 1 in everything. Run game still going to be a major strength for them. Stafford struggled the last couple years. It's going to be interesting to see how he plays. Let's say the last couple years. Last year, and that's what dipped his overall. Pass rush, they get a lot of pass rushers, both inside and out. They will be running a 3-4 like a bunch of the teams this year. A bunch of teams switching up schemes. Some still keeping it the same. But weakness last year, it's still a bit of a weakness this year. Darnell Washington will be the starting tight end for Georgia this year. Just another weapon to add to that offense. Let's see what they can do with him there. But yeah, Georgia's going to be a really interesting team. Very well balanced, not a lot of holes. They should be fun to watch. Now let's get to that 7th seed. Same quadrant as Ohio State. Scary quadrant to be in, and that will be Florida being the 7th seed. Up from a 12 seed last year. They are 3 overalls higher. That's because they filled a lot of holes with the incoming rookies that they have. Solid weapons on offense. You're going to have Pierce, Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts, and they have no major holes on defense. Now, quarterback, obviously Anthony Richardson coming in this year. Big boost over Kyle Trask overall-wise. And you also have Osiris Torrance stepping in and filling one of those offensive line holes. They still have one hole, like a 65 at center, who I don't even think he's a natural center. So we'll see how he plays. But a big boost with those 2 rookies, helping boost them up 3 overalls on offense. Now another weakness, defense, a whole lot of average, whole lot of low to mid 70s in the front 7. Secondary a little bit better, but still going up 2 overalls from last year. So another really solid, well-rounded team. And we'll see how they play as well. They lost to Georgia in the first round in a rivalry matchup last year. They look to bounce back. We'll see who they play later on. Coming in at 8 in the quadrant with Alabama is Iowa. Iowa, obviously you have tight end U. I don't think that's very debatable, at least not for me. You have Kittle rocking tight end. You have a bunch of other tight ends like Hawkinson, Fant. They will be moving over to wide receiver just to give them more passing options because they don't really have many wide receivers. Quarterback and running back are also something that they lack, but they are rounding out a little bit more this year. Still a 77 overall, slight hit on offense. That's probably because left tackle or right tackle Beluga is retired. Defense took a 1 bump in overall, so we'll see how they play. A lot, basically the same team as last year for the most part. Last year lost to Wisconsin round 1, which, I mean, they made a Final Four run, so definitely doesn't look like a bad loss. This team's also missing a kicker, and defensive line is a little lackluster. So we'll see how they perform, and we'll also see who they play with this 9 seed, who is Notre Dame. Notre Dame was the 8 seed last year, so another 8-9 matchup. They lost to Alabama in the quarterfinals, which is definitely nothing to be ashamed of. Strengths, offensive line. Obviously, they got 2 of the best guards in the game and one of the best left tackles in the game. Safety, they got a lot of safeties. Some of them move over to corner, like Julian Love. Obviously, you got Harrison Smith and many others, Kyle Hamilton. Yeah, 76 overall, same as last year. They are rounding out a lot better this year. 77 offense, which is down 3, but defense is up 3. Defensive line's a little weak, and quarterback and running back are also kind of weak. Last year they started Ian Book at quarterback. He's a 55. They also have another 55, Deshaun Kaiser. If things aren't going well in the first half, they might make a switch. They also have a 54 overall. I think it was Cone, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it right in front of me. But yeah, 3 quarterbacks around the same overall, so we'll just see who plays. That is also something to watch for Notre Dame. Yeah, should be an interesting 8-9 matchup again this year. It was very close last year with Michigan. And also, before I really move on, one of the requirements that I've mentioned last year to have a team in the alumni tournament is you have to have an active quarterback. So a team like Michigan, they had 2 quarterbacks retire last year in Chad Henne and Tom Brady. They also had another one in the game. I think he was like the worst quarterback in the game. He was like a 48 overall. I don't even remember his name. But he's not in the game anymore. So Michigan is without a quarterback, which is leaving them out of the tournament completely. So that opens up a spot for some of these other teams. We're also going to see some other new teams. We'll see who those are later. But yeah, that's just something to watch. I just feel like quarterback's too big of a position to just give them a random person that's low overall, like some other positions like left outside linebacker or the second D tackle or something like that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get on to the 10 seed. This team will be playing Florida in the first round, and that will be Penn State. Penn State did not do too good last year. They got whooped by Clemson in the first round. This year they look to bounce back, taking a 1 boost in overall, both offense and defense as well. Offensive weapons, you got obviously Chris Godwin, Saquon Barkley, probably the best running back duo with Barkley and Miles Sanders. Quarterback, Sean Clifford will be taking over for Trace McSorley. He's a little bit higher overall, only a 59, but still, upgrades are upgrades. Offensive line still going to have some holes. Inside linebacker, I believe they have mid-60s at inside linebacker. But yeah, overall, a solid team. Micah Parsons going to be all over the place for this defense. And then you got guys like Adrian Amos on the defense as well. So it should be a solid team. They were the 10 seed last year and the 10 seed again this year. So, I mean, they do have a more favorable matchup this year, though. They are playing Florida, which should be a pretty even matchup. I think the Florida's only a 77 if I remember correctly, so we'll see how that goes. All right, and let's go ahead and get on to that next seed. We're going to have the 11th seed going up against Georgia in the first round, and that will be USC. This is going to be a very interesting matchup. 76 overall for USC, up 2 from last year, up 1 on offense, 3 on defense. Wide receivers still major strength, and they actually got a little bit better this year with St. Brown breaking out a little bit. No major holes on defense. That is something to keep an eye on. Very well rounded. Hufanga took a jump at strong safety as well. I believe he's like a 86 over a strong safety. They also have a wide receiver playing tight end. Just kind of fill that hole because they didn't really have any tight ends. They do have a couple holes along the offensive line, like a bunch of other teams, and they are without both kicker and punter, so that could be also something to watch. As I know, like I said, they played Georgia in the first round. Georgia's got both, so we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, USC is going to be a very fun team to watch. A lot to like about USC. Now let's get to that 12 seed playing Clemson in the first round. That will be Wisconsin. Going to be very interesting. Big heavies on both sides. Clemson's got a great D-line. Wisconsin's got a great O-line. Running game's going to be a strength for Wisconsin. Pass rush as well. Obviously, you got T.J. Watt. But you do lose J.J. Watt. He retired, so that's going to take a hit. That's probably why their defense went down 1 overall. But they remain at a 75 overall. Down from an 11 seed last year to a 12. They lost in the semifinals last year, losing in the Final Four to Ohio State. Definitely a great run for Wisconsin as an 11 seed. But this is definitely a team that has some holes. Secondary, not much there. They have low 60 overalls at corner, and they don't have any safety, so they're just going to be given some random guys. Passing weapons are also a little lackluster, but they do have Russell Wilson throwing them the ball, so we'll see how that pans out. And they are also without a punter and a kicker. Now let's go ahead and look at this 13 seed who will be playing Oklahoma in the first round. And that's going to be a new team, Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss is going to be a very fun team to watch. You look at the overall 72, not that high, but 77 offense, 69 defense. And, I mean, you look at the way their offense is built. They're going to have DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown at wide receiver. That's a great duo. And you also have Knox and Evan Ingram at tight end. And a few very good offensive linemen, too, like Laramie Tunsil. Running backs and quarterbacks not as strong. You're going to have Matt Corral leading the charge. We'll see how he plays. He does have a lot of weapons to use. And running backs are also around high 60 overalls. So not terrible, but you'd like to have more. This team should definitely look to play more through the air. Now on defense, they play Oklahoma in the first round. Kind of comparable. Not as big of a split, but definitely offense heavy. Defense, you got guys like Mike Hilton at corner. They're also without kicker and punter and special teams, but defense is not going to be too special. They got a couple guys. Nobody elite. Bunch of low 70s, high 60s. Nothing really special. Offense is really where they're going to have to do well if they're going to succeed in this tournament. So that should be a really fun matchup, a shootout in the first round with Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Now let's look at the 14th seed playing LSU in the first round, and that is going to be Florida State. Returning from last year, they made a championship run and lost to Ohio State. Now they are taking a pretty big hit. If you look at the overall, down to a 72. Offense took a 5 overall hit, and that's probably because they lost Izzo at tight end, who, if you watched last year, he played really well for his overall, and they also lost Devonta Freeman, who was obviously a natural running back, but he was playing slot receiver for them last year, and he also played really well. Offensive line, you lose Hudson at center. He was like an 87. So you lose a lot on offense. They were honestly at risk of not having a team just based on how much they lost, but when a team makes a championship run, they're still a 72 overall. I couldn't justify leaving them out. Now, obviously, they're still going to have guys like Dalvin Cook, Cam Akers, who's actually moving to wide receiver. You got Jameis Winston at quarterback, which is, I think he played decent last year. He had some questionable moments, but he played solid overall. Defense is really where they're built. 83 overall defense. You got guys like Derwin James, who will be back at middle linebacker, played really well. Then you got Jalen Ramsey, who honestly kind of carried in the secondary a couple key picks and a couple key games that kept them in the tournament as long as they were. Pass rush, you're going to have Sweat, you're going to have Burns. Some really solid pass rush as well. Couple holes, D tackle's not really that strong. But yeah, overall, passing options and offensive line is going to be what holds this team back. Offense is really, we'll just have to wait and see. And they do have a very tough matchup in the first round playing LSU, who's solid all around. So, don't know if I see them making a championship run this year, but you know, they're making their turn to come back after a championship run. You can't really scoff at that. Now, coming in at 15, playing Ohio State in the first round, is another new team. We got Oregon. Now, Oregon's going to come in at a 71 overall, 68 offense, 76 defense. If you remember last year, the way that Mississippi State was built, kind of similar. Mississippi State was a little bit of a higher overall, but they had a good quarterback and not much else on offense. Same with Oregon. You're going to have Herbert at quarterback. You got a couple tight ends, and some of them have moved to wide receiver, and that's just out of necessity. But you do have Sewell, who will be playing left tackle just to cover Herbert's blind side. Hopefully he can pick apart something. Definitely going to be a heavy underdog against the reigning champs, Ohio State. Weaknesses, obviously offensive weapons and offensive line, and they're also without kicker and punter. Now, defense is very solid. You got guys like Buckner, Armstead, Thibodeau, a couple really good guys in the secondary as well. You got a rookie corner, Gonzalez. So yeah, really solid team on defense, at least. So we'll see how they play. But yeah, playing Ohio State's going to be a tough one first time around. We'll just have to see how it pans out. But an exciting team. I know they'll be represented by the Eagles. Just get that uniform-wise. Get the green in there. But yeah, should be a fun team to watch at least. Now looking at the 16th seed, the last team to make it in is going to be Cincinnati. There was a lot of debate over whether to throw Cincinnati in there for me, but I think it's either now or never for Cincinnati. Obviously, they might still improve. They might not have anybody retire, but you look at the strengths, the Kelsey brothers. I just feel like this team's a mix of old school and new school Cincinnati. You got a bunch of guys coming in from these last couple years. Obviously, you got Sauce Gardner at corner. He's going to be locked down. And then you got the Kelsey brothers, like I've already mentioned. Jason Kelsey, I mean, he could, who knows, maybe he retires after this year and then they take a big hit. They're going to have Desmond Ridder at quarterback, a few solid receivers. But yeah, Travis Kelce's the main focal point of this offense. He's probably what has him up to a 72 and 70 overall. Defense, I mean, they have some guys too, really decent in the secondary. Front seven, not as much, so we'll see how that plays out. And they are also without kicker and punter. So, you know, it should be fun to watch. This is the only non-Power 5 team in the tournament, and it might be the only non-Power 5 team in the tournament for a while. Well, actually, no, they're not technically not non-Power 5 anymore, even though all the guys that are on this team didn't play Power 5. I guess they're in the Big 12 now. But group of 5 made, we'll put it that way. But yeah, 70 overall, and they will have to face Alabama in that first round matchup. Now, some teams that did not make it this time around, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, they played Alabama and Ohio State last year and just did not show enough. They didn't add enough again this year. They might have been some slightly better overalls, but they would have been in the very similar matchups. So we're giving some new teams a shot, and we'll see how they play out. And you can also see some of these other teams down at the bottom that did not make the cut. Some of them were really close. Some of them were I built them and just looked them over, not quite good enough. And there's also going to be some teams that you see on here next year that might be able to make the jump. Some that were just missing quarterbacks, like South Carolina's. If they were able to get their quarterback up, they got some really solid pieces. But yeah, a bunch of these teams were really close, like Tennessee and Texas. But I think those teams are on the rise. I think they will be here in the next couple years. But yeah, this is the bracket that we got laid out for this year. I'm really excited about it. The first game that we record is still a little unknown. I'm a consult with my commentating partners, and we'll decide on which one we're going to do. I'm kind of eyeballing that Oklahoma Ole Miss game, if I'm being honest. I love a good shootout, so we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I hope you guys are excited for this Madden 24 Alumni Tournament, the second annual on the next gen, so we'll see how it pans out, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will be signing off. Adios.